Um, on Tuesday, I think it was. Was it Tuesday? Yes, it might have been Monday. Can't remember. It was earlier in the week. Gosh, the weeks go by so quickly these days. You remember I broke the story on the platform, and it's gone gangbusters, I have to say, on social media, and rightly so. On the shakedown, well, what seems to be a shakedown of the Oceania Gold mining company in this country with their gold mine at Macraes in north of Dunedin in Otago, sort of eastern Otago, really, by interests connected with the Ngai Tahu iwi, and how the Ngai Tahu iwi were seeking to monetize and weaponize their particular culture and their Te Ao Māori view, with all its spooky spiritualism, I have to say, into blocking a commercial entity from expanding its operations, and demanding compensation for essentially the great offence that had been delivered to them collectively by Oceania Gold and the Macraes gold mine in particular. You remember I broke that story on Tuesday. Now, can I just say, and I will just say this once, the really interesting thing is that no mainstream media in New Zealand, despite now access to those same documents, have reported on this issue. And it was reading through the Jacinda, the untold stories, and there's a graph here at the end about trust of mainstream media and what happened during that particular period. That Jacinda Ardern was the Prime Minister. You had the Public Interest Journalism Fund and all that stuff as well, if you remember. In which, and it's commented upon in David Cohen's book, about how the mainstream media managed to lose or uh, the faith, the trust of ordinary New Zealanders because they became such obvious and ostensible cheerleaders for not just the government but for specific government policies that eroded and in many cases eradicated individual rights in this country. And we looked at the mainstream media and the role and the function that they played, and we suddenly realized that they were part of the problem, not part of the solution. That they had abandoned their objectivity in favour of what was clearly an ideological perspective. And we suddenly realised, all of us, all New Zealanders, that the mainstream media were no longer the honest brokers or were no longer the independent arbiters of truth, or the conduct of facts in this country. That they were an active ideological player who would bend the truth to fit that particular ideology. All right. So we knew that. But I would suggest to you, and that was to do with Jacinda Ardern and the COVID response and the public health response to that particular pandemic. I would argue that that hasn't changed. That as of November, the 7th of November 2025, the mainstream media now are also out from an ideological point of view to protect not just Jacinda Ardern but also iwi leaders and iwi leadership from the same scrutiny that they would subject any others to in their normal journalistic practices. That Maori, and particularly the leadership of Maori in this country, and particularly the iwi leadership of this country, are being given a free pass and protected by the mainstream media in this country, who are deliberately protecting them for largely ideological reasons. And the non-coverage of the Oceania Gold shakedown, in which a particular group of iwi habitues, if you like, or runanga, are able to weaponize and corporatize and monetize their particular cultural values to shake down a New Zealand commercial company, is a really good example of that and the non-reporting. Listen, the platform will continue to bring these stories. So will I. And I'm not a journalist, for God's sake. I'm just believe that if somebody acts in an immoral way, that immorality should be exposed as much as it has been for Givon McSkimming. Now, the media all over Givon McSkimming, not all over Oceania Gold and the shakedown there, or the shakedown of Meridian Energy in the Waitaki Valley either, by similarly aligned Ngai Tahu um, commercial entities. What do you think?